Hey guys, my name is Matimio, and today I'm excited to say that DICE has just released 2 brand new night maps on the CTE for Battlefield 4. The first thing that you're going to notice right when you jump into one of these maps is that moon. You know what? I wouldn't even call it a moon. I would classify it more as a supernova because there is more light shining off of this thing than the normal sun on the original Golmud Railways and Zavad maps. Like, it is simply ridiculous. I was actually taking advantage of this tactically. I don't know if this is what DICE was going for. I'm pretty sure it wasn't. But if I knew that the enemy was coming from one objective, I would try to situate myself in a way where if I came in conflict with anyone, the moon would be to my back so I wasn't facing it, and anyone that tried to shoot at me would have to look at all of that glare and all of the moonlight in their face. I'm almost positive that this is not what DICE was going for, even though you are technically taking advantage of your environment, and I know that some people might be fond of it. On the CTE forums, a bunch of developers were talking about how this is the very early stages of Zavad and Golmud Railways. They have a lot of work that needs to be done, and one of the things that they did mention is that that moon is way too bright right now. And so I'm assuming in the next couple of weeks or in the few months when these maps finally do go live, that DICE will have plenty of time to make the adjustments that need to be done. And while I'm assuming that it will still be a bright moon, it is a full moon, there's still going to be a lot of illumination there, it's not going to be as absurd as it is right now. One thing I love though, and I have to commend DICE on, is that even though these maps are in the early stages, they look gorgeous. Here, for example, I'm just running around on Golmud Railways, a random helicopter flies on over, he activates his flares, and it turns into a light show. This really demonstrates the true power of the Frostbite engine and what the lighting effects look like in Battlefield 4. Light is bouncing off all the surfaces because of the flares, shadows are popping up, and just simply from a graphical standpoint, it looks amazing. Like, Battlefield has always been known for its top-notch graphics, but when you start to add in these lighting effects, it really elevates it to the next level. Another thing I really loved is that on certain sections of the map, if you know what you're doing and you're able to manipulate the light source, you can plunge parts of them into darkness. Like, flat out, if you are not using a flashlight or the Iron V, you will have absolutely no idea that an enemy is in a corner or even just running around in certain sections of it. The most obvious example is on Golmud Railways in all of the buildings around the A and B capture points. You do have to shoot out the lights. You have to be proactive there, and that can leave you a little bit vulnerable because if you're firing a weapon that isn't suppressed, you are going to show up on the mini-map, but as soon as you do, and you are not using a flashlight, you're not going to be able to see what the hell is going on in front of you. Here's a perfect example. I'm around some teammates, we're testing it out a little bit, I shoot out the lights, and when we do, I turn on my flashlight, bright as day, I have no problem figuring out what's going on around me, but as soon as I turn it off, he just disappears into the void. It's amazing. I had some really cool moments where I killed a few enemies around a building, I ducked inside to try to regenerate my health with my med bag. Because I wasn't using a flashlight or an infrared scope, I had no idea if anyone was inside. I thought I was safe because no one was showing up on the mini-map. Little did I know, though, there was this one guy camping in a corner waiting for someone to enter his lair, and he was easily able to take me out because I had no idea he was there because of that darkness. Sure, I was a little annoyed because no one likes to die in a first-person shooter. You're always trying to avoid that in Battlefield, but it was that night combat that was extremely refreshing. And so I'm really hoping that DICE is going to continue on with this theme, either of letting us manipulate more light sources, I would be completely down with that, or just simply making the map significantly darker. If Siege of Shanghai is any indication of how dark that they are going to be making these maps, and if these rooms and these buildings on Golmud Railways is another indication, then I have high hopes and high expectations that they are really serious about that night combat, and I couldn't be any happier. One additional feature that you may have noticed is that all of the ground vehicles now have essentially bright car lights on them. One problem that a lot of gamers were having with the night combat is that it was very difficult to pinpoint where a tank was. If you try to shoot an RPG at these vehicles, they almost always had the advantage. They would have their Iron V scope on, they would see the bright RPG fly their way, they could figure out where you were, but it was very difficult for you to pinpoint the exact location of the tank at all times because you were constantly ducking in and out of cover, and just acquiring where that tank and where you should be shooting was a little bit too difficult. And so the way that DICE combated this, quite obviously, is that they added all of the headlights into pretty much all of the ground vehicles. My issue with it though, or my one critique, is that while I love the idea, I think it is a great addition into the game, I find that it's really bright when you're on the receiving end. If you stare at one of the headlights of a tank, for example, you're going to be blinded. You're going to have no idea what's going on around you. The blinding effect is that severe, but then when you're in the driver's seat, they look like this pitiful flashlight, like they hardly illuminate anything in front of you. This has been pretty much my critique of all the flashlights in Battlefield 4. When you're on the receiving end, they're very obvious, but whenever you're using them, they feel underwhelming. And so what I'm hoping for is that they just simply increase the effectiveness, have them pierce the darkness a little bit more. That way they can be used as they're supposed to be used, which is to illuminate what the hell is going on in front of you. But overall, I'm really liking what I've seen so far of the night version of Golmud Railway and Zavad. They're clearly in the early stages. You jump in right now, you are going to notice some pretty significant glitches, especially if you're using the Iron V on Golmud Railways. It is very obvious, but this is the framework. They're going to be building upon this in the next couple of weeks, and I cannot wait to see where it leads. But yeah, guys, that is about it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think about these two new maps. Do you agree with me that the moon is way too bright right now? Would there be other aspects that you would like to change here and there? Let me know down below. But yeah, until tomorrow, have a good one and take it easy.